The only way for man to be free is to become aware of the bonds that tie him down and choose to break free. We frequently fall into not only destructive but also counterproductive habits in the fast-paced and constantly changing world we live in. The Stoics place a strong emphasis on the importance of focusing on what we can control and breaking free from the bonds of lust, impulsive behavior, and uncontrollable feelings. In this video, I'll discuss 6 destructive habits that I've had at some point and that are very common in the modern world. It's possible for these habits to get in the way of our happiness, personal growth, and ability to live a good life. That's why they're bad for you and keep you from having a happy life. I want you to be honest with yourself before you get into the facts. From the outside, look at your life. This will help you figure out which of these 6 bad habits is hurting you. After that, it will be up to you to deal with them. The first habit has to do with putting off plans. For some reason, most people do this sneaky habit. It has important consequences, despite its apparent safety. Putting off doing something that you could or should do right away is called procrastination, because we keep thinking about what needs to be done, but don't do it. There is a loss of time and energy. Stoicism says that putting things off can lead to forgetting about our personal and professional responsibilities, which can lower the quality of our work. Our reputation and other people's trust in us are both damaged by this age. Postponing your responsibilities and promises is one of the worst things you can do to yourself. The Stoics valued integrity and keeping your word. As chores pile up and due dates get closer, putting things off causes more stress and anxiety. Our mental and physical health are both affected by this ongoing stress, which makes it difficult for us to think clearly and relax. Let's say you need to finish an important job by a certain date. You don't break it up into digestible pieces and work on it regularly. Instead, you put it off until the last minute. You find yourself worried and exhausted as the deadline approaches and the pressure mounts. It's better to plan our work and do our tasks ahead of time than to try to do everything in one day. This behavior pattern not only makes you unhappy, but it also hurts the quality of your work, your reputation as a worker, and how other people see you. Postponing responsibilities is a destructive habit that goes against Stoic principles. It causes time loss, unmet duties, and increased stress and anxiety. You can combat it by planning, self-discipline, and focusing on your responsibilities and ties. Don't fall into this trap. Never make vows on the spur of the moment, especially when you are feeling strong emotions. I say this because I'm sure you've made a promise or committed to something at some point and then felt bad about it. This happens because we often decide what to do based on how we feel at the time instead of what we know to be true. Before making a decision, give yourself enough time to think about it carefully by yourself. People who are angry or upset shouldn't make promises or make hasty choices. The second bad habit is lying. In today's culture, lying is a common habit that is extremely destructive. A lie will sooner or later fall into their own traps because they become a victim of their own fears. Truth and integrity were greatly valued by the Stoics, and lying destroys both. We depart from these ideals and reveal the true nature of ourselves when we lie. We also hurt the quality of our relationships and make trust weaker. When we lie, we undermine the trust that others have in us, and it's hard to get that trust back once it's been damaged. Stoicism says that relationships should be based on trust and respect for each other. We make a different world that traps us in a web of lies when we lie. This can lead to a circle of lies that become more complicated and tiring, which causes stress and anxiety that aren't necessary. If you find yourself in a situation where you made a mistake at work, instead of taking blame, you choose to lie to hide it. At first, it might look like you've been avoiding the problem, but over time, the truth may come out. When that happens, you'll not only have to deal with the consequences of the original mistake, but also the fact that you lied, which can seriously damage your reputation and personal consequences. A destructive habit that goes against basic principles is lying. There is no truth, no integrity, no trust, and a false world is made. Being honest, taking responsibility, and accepting the truth are all things you can do to combat it. Keep in mind that a lot of lies come from fear. Lies keep your true feelings hidden and trick yourself instead of other people. Believing everything we hear is the third habit. It's simple to fall into the habit of blindly taking everything we hear in the information age. Instead of believing their own judgment, many people lack the ability to think critically about the information they are given and simply accept what their settings tell them. In doing so, we give up critical thinking, which the Stoics thought was an important part of being good. These ideals are opposed by passively accepting information without challenging it. We are more open to manipulation and unjustified control if we don't question the information we receive. This is very dangerous in this day and age of fake news and false information. Unfair influence can undermine the Stoics' values of independent thought and self-determination. Consider the scenario where you see a shocking news story on social media and share it with your friends without checking the information or thinking about the source. You later find out that the news wasn't true, which makes you feel lied to and ashamed. You may have also spread false information by sharing it, which may have hurt other people's thoughts and actions. This behavior also has a big effect on your relationships and on how you meet new people and make new friends. Think about how many times someone has told you something good or bad about another person, and how those opinions can affect how you see and treat that person without even knowing them. You may lose chances and hurt your relationships if you do this. A destructive habit that prevents us from thinking critically and makes us open to manipulation and unfair influence is believing everything we hear. You must learn to question sources, verify information, and develop your own opinion. In the modern world, a person who lacks the ability to think and the authority to draw their own conclusions is an easy target and is susceptible to manipulation. A lack of communication abilities is the fourth habit. In our relationships, both personal and business, effective communication is a crucial skill. I truly believe that we have lost a respect for language use and meaningful communication in this day and age. Because of this, people often have shallow talks in which they don't really care about or listen to what the other person is saying. Misunderstandings and fights can lead to poor communication skills. Poor communication can risk these ideals, which the Stoics understood to be of utmost importance in our relationships. We might not be able to say what we want and how we feel if we don't know how to speak well, which can lead to dissatisfaction, frustration, and anger. The Stoics recognized the importance of authenticity and self-expression in having quality discussions. In the end, people are social and talkative by nature, and conversations should be useful talks between people. It should be beneficial to talk to another person, not draining. A destructive habit that can lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, and problems sharing our wants and feelings is not knowing how to speak. Whether it's through reading or watching high-quality material, I encourage you to develop your communication skills. Active hearing, in which you put your focus on really understanding what the other person is saying rather than planning your answer, can greatly enhance your conversations. Your communication will hit a high level of excellence if you do it regularly. The fifth habit is always judging ourselves against other people. I understand that you have a fierce sense of competition and that you want to beat other people, even if that's not your goal. But this is a common habit in our day and age and can undermine your self-esteem and life happiness. As it always seems like someone else is more successful, rich, or skilled, constant comparison can lead to dissatisfaction and unhappiness. Instead of constantly comparing ourselves to others, the Stoics encourage us to focus on our own personal growth and be grateful for what we already have. If we do that, we might try to change who we are to fit certain standards or ideals, which could cause us to lose our identity and authenticity. Remember, though, that this won't be beneficial in the long run because you will eventually show who you really are sooner or later. People who follow the Stoics teach us to be true to ourselves and live by our own rules and values. Let's say you're always judging yourself against your coworkers. You feel like you're never good enough and always need to work harder to match or surpass them. This constant pressure can lead to exhaustion, dissatisfaction, and unhappiness, taking you away from your true self. Constant comparison to others is a destructive habit that can erode your identity and authenticity. You must understand that obsessing over what others are doing is not beneficial. When you can focus on improving yourself, understand that comparison is futile because there will always be someone who seems to be in a superior position. You'll be happier when your primary goal is to surpass who you were yesterday and compete with yourself. The sixth habit is blaming others for our lives. In modern society, it's common to see people seeking external culprits for what happens in their lives instead of taking personal responsibility. This approach makes them lose control and autonomy over their lives. Blaming others for our circumstances distances us from understanding what's under our control and what's not, and blaming others takes us away from this understanding. This habit can lead to a victim mentality and foster emotional dependence on others for our stability. When we seek external culprits for our lives, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to learn from our mistakes and grow as individuals. Seeking culprits for our lives is a destructive habit that deprives us of control and autonomy. It leads to a victim mentality, resentment, and personal decline. As Stoics, we must understand and accept what's under our control and take responsibility for it, avoiding the trap of blaming others for our circumstances. As individuals with values, we must be aware of these behaviors and work to overcome them, striving to live a life of virtue, wisdom, and inner tranquility. I invite you to reflect on these habits in your own life and to be truly self-critical. Only those who identify the bonds that tie them can break free from them.